We're making this video to encourage teachers across the district to coordinate with people at their school site in order to do wellness checks.
A wellness check means you're contacting families to find out about what their living situation is and to connect them to resources, whether that be academic, financial, housing, technology, and basically just kind of finding out what's going on in people's lives right now.
There are a lot of benefits to doing wellness checks with families. Some of them are just simply connecting with families and lessening that sort of isolation that people feel right now during physical distancing. Another success that I've had with a lot of the families is connecting them to resources. So whether it be the grab and go meals at the schools, a lot of families didn't, despite all the messaging right from the district, a lot of the families still didn't know what days, what times to go pick up food. Some families were unable to go get the food because of lack of transportation. So in that case, it was about connecting families to volunteers who would drop off the meals.
I first just got the phone numbers of all my students, and I just went across a list saying, do you have technology? Do you have food? Are you worried about paying rent? Are there any other things that you need? Are there any way that you would like to support other families? And just went through each one and was able to actually make some great strides with my fellow teachers to be able to get food for a family that was really struggling. Even there was a newborn baby in my class and they had no diapers, and the community came through and brought them diapers. So I think the only way to really do useful connection is with this wellness check. And it's important to do it every once in a while to check in with your kids.
Here's a few guidelines to follow when doing wellness checks. Number 1, be a leader. Reach out to other teachers at your school site, your CAS team, and your ILT to set up a system at your school to make these critical phone calls. Number 2, document. Number 3, triage. Number 4, make sure to be judgment-free. Remember, families are sharing really sensitive information with us, and it's really important that we really make important connections with family and maintain the trust that they have in us.
Coordinate with other people at your school site, so you're not doing this in isolation. You either coordinate through your grade level teams or through PLC or through the cost team, so that you have a centralized spreadsheet and we can know across a school what kind of issues and needs are coming up for each family.
I set up Zoom calls and tried to have 4 or 5 students on the same call to do some of the check-in. For some of the more personal questions, I kind of went ahead and got on the phone with students who I knew were more vulnerable to the impact in terms of having existing mental health challenges.
One of the things that I've learned about my students doing wellness checks is that a lot of people, or that a lot of my students are not the only ones in their houses because they're living multiple families in one space. And so access to what we're technically going to be asking kids to do is going to look a lot different than like a one family home. Wellness checks are critically important at this time because we don't know what families have access to. I think another reason that it was important was because most families didn't understand what a shelter in place means. Maybe a couple of times I felt like I was being a little bit invasive into their lives, but I prefaced each question with like, I know this might sound like a weird question, or you completely have the right to not tell me anything, like you don't have to answer me, but I just want to know because I have resources to offer you. And so most people were extremely, I've talked with each and every one of my families, and everyone has been super appreciative of just me like texting them or like calling to say, how are you doing? Do you guys have food for the week? Or here's where you can get more food. If OUSD ran out, here's another place where you can go. And I think a lot of people are going to say like, well, we're not social workers. We're teachers. We're not social workers. We shouldn't be expected to be doing this type of work of providing wraparound services for everyone. Well, I mean, this is my third year teaching, and I came to teaching at a point in my life where I needed to do something where I felt like I was making a difference, and I needed to do something where I felt like I had a bigger role in as a teacher. My job is ultimately caring for the whole child, and for me that means caring for their entire family. Like, if there's something askew in their family, it's gonna show in the student. And I had parents tell me, like, well, I don't read in English or Spanish. And so I was like, okay, cool. Is there anybody in your house who can read in Spanish? I can send you the resource in Spanish. And they were like, oh yeah, my husband can read in Spanish. I'll show it to him when he gets home. And I was like, okay, cool. And then if you feel free to call me anytime if you have more questions. As teachers, we are considered first responders. Like, we technically do it every day. We are the first people to respond when a child has a problem, when a student has an issue. If there is a resource that, this has definitely happened, if there is a need that a family has that I don't have a resource for yet, which has definitely, it's currently going down with undocumented resources because they're very limited right now, or with regard to the stimulus. Most of my families are not going to get that stimulus. My first question is, or my first response to them is, "Ooh, that's a great question. Right now I don't have an answer for you, but I'm going to work on it." And I take notes in my little Google Doc that I have, and I am keeping track of what we talk about. I've been holding this for 3 weeks now, and it's been rough. It's been rough. I've definitely been through all of the feelings, and I know it's a lot for us to hold. But do your best. At the end of the day, like, whenever I can, I get up out of this chair, I stretch, I put on some music, I go outside, I pet my cat, I do what I need to stay sane, I do what I need to maintain my balance, to maintain my stasis, and I take breaks. If you aren't healthy mentally and physically, you can't help anybody. And that is something that is like running through my head all of the time. I need to stay at my best so I can help others, so I can help my families, because I'm the first one that they call.